Welcome to Pyrotechnics, the rock and metal music podcast. We take a look at the relevant and irrelevant side of the genres we all love, and hopefully learn a few things along the way. We also throw in some banging tracks as well. So, turn the dial to 11, and let's go for it.
Pyrotechnics is proudly sponsored by Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine. 164 pages packed full of interviews, reviews, and features all about your favourite genres of music. Our latest edition is available from our website, fireworks-magazine.com, or visit your local WH Smiths or McCall's. UK subscriptions are now just £32 for 4 issues. Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine. For enthusiasts, by enthusiasts.
Welcome to all you rock and metal heads. I'm Peter Arnett, and it gives me the greatest of pleasure to welcome you to the latest episode of Pyrotechnics, the rock and metal music podcast that focuses on the relevant and irrelevant side of the amazing genres that we all love. As ever, we are brought to you by Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine. Issue 110 is being eagerly pieced together by my 2 co-hosts and also our amazing team of reviewers and interviewers, ready for the release date mid-March. Details will soon be available on how you can pre-order this. But in the meantime, have you thought about a subscription? UK prices are just £32, including postage and packaging, right to the doormat of your choice. There are no hidden costs. And most times, in fact, I think we've hit this target within the last 4 issues that we've released. We aim to actually get it to you before the street date. And with the uncertainty over WH Smiths, it just makes more sense to guarantee yourself a copy. We're a growing publication in our field, and the subscriber count is at its highest in our 110 issue history. So come and join our family. If you're not sure, just look at our social media feeds or website to see genuine reviews left by other readers. So let me introduce my 2 co-hosts. As ever, we have our fantastic duo of our deputy editor and metal expert, Mr. Dave Cockett. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Pete. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show that never ends.
And also our art editor and rock expert, Mr. James Gaydon. Welcome, James.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Right. As you know, I like to pose a quiz question. I believe James is still one behind Dave, so this is his chance to try and pull level, or will Dave pull away? Let's start with this one. Gentlemen, pin back your ears and have a listen. Which of the following artists is the UK's best-selling artist in terms of albums' pure sales? Records included in this are studio albums, compilations, live albums, and box sets. But note that music videos, EPs, and singles are not included. And the figures for this are from Chartmasters. So your 5 choices: Pink Floyd, Eagles, or The Eagles, and depending on how you want to say it, Dire Straits, Guns N' Roses, and Bryan Adams. That's Pink Floyd, Eagles, Dire Straits, Guns N' Roses, and Bryan Adams. Yeah. You got them, chaps?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will find out if the gentlemen really do know their stuff at the end of this show. Right. I'm sure everybody knows this one, but every once in a while an artist comes who just shakes things up so that they always stick in your mind. We all know one. For me, Freddie Mercury, and I'm sure James also feels the same as well. When he passed, there was almost like a void, a great hole left in the musical world. And the knowledge that greatness will not continue and that there'll be no music is quite hard. And also we learned the sad news that John Sykes, the icon John Sykes, of Thin Lizzy, Whitesnake, Tigers of Pantan, and Blue Murder had passed. And like me, both James and Dave got emotional about this. So as a publication, and fans obviously of music, and all at Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine send their sympathies, love and condolences to John's surviving family, friends and bandmates. But I think we've all got tales of what we know about and remember about John. So, for this little segment, we don't often do this, but, we're just going to have a little reminisce about John. What do you remember most about him, Dave?
Firstly, you got the impression he kind of retired 20 years ago, because he's not released anything since, I think, Nuclear Cowboy, which was his last solo album, if memory serves me correctly. But up to that point, he'd not been the most prolific of artists, but there was just something about him. Firstly, I first remember John when he joined Tigers of Pantang, and particularly when Spellbound come out.
Yes.
He'd got this mane of curly blonde hair. He looked cool. He looked cool for 1980, let alone for mid-80s. But boy, could he make that guitar talk. And you just thought, wow, we've not really seen anything like him. He's like Robert Plant with a guitar in his hand. And he just seemed to get better and better and better. And as his profile raised, obviously, looking back, you feel a bit sorry for him when he joined Thin Lizzy. A big step up for him. But at the point he joined, they kind of knew that this was the last throw of the dice, that this would be the last album. But what an album, Thunder and Lightning. Heaviest thing that Lizzy ever did. And it just showcased what a great guitar player and writing partner John Sykes was. Obviously, Lizzy ground to a halt. And then he moved on to Whitesnake, David Coverdale. Match made in heaven, personality-wise, perhaps a match made in hell. But again, it produced a great album. Firstly, if you rewind a little bit, the work that he did on the American version of Slide It In made it an album that went from being a quintessentially British bluesy rock type album that wasn't really that successful in the States to something that sort of kicked open the doors. And I still think that the US version of Slide It In's one of my favourite Whitesnake albums. But when 1987 came along, okay, relations had got to the point where he was pretty much out of the band, and when I booked to see the gigs that they did to support the album, he'd long gone. But you can't take away from stuff like Still of the Night. And the stories that came along that sort of still permeate these days afterwards. Well, John didn't play a lot on that album, a lot of his guitars were out of tunes, and yada, 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 had to come in and redo it. And you think, okay, listen to the first Blue Murder album, because that is the natural successor to 1987 to me, and from a personal perspective, song-wise is even better. And that just calls it out as bullshit. Blue Murder, again, was a project that evolved with various people, and you could see that the egos involved. It was never going to become a long-term thing with those other people involved. But John took it, and why the Blue Murder debut isn't one of those albums that's lauded by everybody, like 1987 was. I don't know why. But you listening to that, you could certainly see who influenced the songwriting on 1987. I only ever saw John a couple of times, I think, when they were doing the Lizzy thing, obviously after Phil had died. But he was a great guitarist, a great frontman, personable sort of fella on stage. And I actively sought out all his solo stuff. Most of it, I think, I had to get from Japan, because he didn't seem to be able to get arrested here. But he's great. He plays some great guitar. He's a great songwriter. He was just everything that, to me, said that this guy, he's a style icon, if you like. I know he's got his detractors, but I'm not one of them. I'll defend him to the hilt. Sad day when John died.
Yeah, definitely. James, what was your favourite memory of John?
For me, my introduction to him was Whitesnake, because when I came into it, I was like, Slip of the Tongue was the first Whitesnake album I heard. And then I went backwards, and I was like, the guitars on this, I love it. It was that. And my dad told me, he was like, oh, it's John Sykes. He used to be in Thin Lizzy. And I thought, oh, he must have been in Thin Lizzy for ages. And it turned out, no, he just did the one album. And to Dave's point, Thunder and Lightning is my favourite Thin Lizzy album, because it's the heaviest, it's the hardest rocking. And I think that's what John Sykes did. Whatever band he was in, he made them rock harder, whether it was the Tigers of Pantang, Thin Lizzy, Whitesnake, whatever. And I sought out the Blue Murder album when I found out he had his own project. And I think it took him a while to accept himself as a frontman rather than just a guitarist, because when you listen to that Blue Murder album, he does a hell of a job as lead singer on that. But he auditioned and was aiming to have like 5 or 6 different guys before he stepped up. It was going to be Ray Gillen at one point. Jolene Turner was looked at one point. Glenn Hughes was approached at one point, and Glenn Hughes had turned to him and says, you should sing these yourself. And then it was going to be Tony Martin, who co-wrote Valley of the Kings with him. And then John Kolodner came along, and he was like, no, we want to build this band around you. We don't want another focal point. And it was between him and Glenn Hughes, that's what gave John Sykes the kick up the arse to sing it himself. He listened to it, he's like, why would he not? It was awesome. And I think that was maybe, even when it came to the second Blue Murder album, he was originally going to have Kelly Keeling do all the singing. And in the end, he ended up only singing one of them, and John did the rest. It was like, you were a great singer, but I think the fact he was such a phenomenal guitar player overshadowed what he could do vocally. And it wasn't until maybe like when he was fronting Thin Lizzy, he sort of accepted the role that, yeah, I can actually do this. And when you listen to his Bad Boy Live album, which was like the last thing he ever gave to the world, and it's like a best of what he's done throughout his career, and he's doing Whitesnake songs and Blue Murder songs and Lizzy songs and solo songs, and you listen to that and you're just like, what a body of work that is. Like Dave says, not the most prolific, but unbelievable as both a vocalist and a guitarist and a songwriter too. And yeah, he looked the part. He sounded brilliant. He played guitar like a monster. So yeah, it's a massive loss. It really is.
I don't know about you guys, but don't you think recently Heaven seems to be gaining too many great artists?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there are better bands up there than there are down here now.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Well, like I said, from all of us, rest in peace, John. And, like I say, Heaven has gained another special artist. Right, let us move on now to this. That's right, it's Views on the News. As you know, we like to publish what we can regarding the news in our rock and metal fields. And here are a few that have caught my eye. I mean, as ever, please head on over to our website, fireworks-magazine.com, and have a look at the articles we've published. There's loads of them covering quite a lot of genres and quite a lot of bands. So fill your boots, basically. But these are the ones that have caught my eye. Let's see what the chaps make of them as well. So Candice Night has announced a new album, Sea Glass, and a new single, Angel and Jezebel, is out now via Ear Music. Alliance have announced a new album, Before Our Eyes, and that's set for release on the 28th of March by Frontiers. Lord of the Lost lead vocalist Chris Harms has released his third single, She Called Me Duval, I think it is, and the official video. Skunk Anansie, who remembers them, released new single, An Artist is an Artist. And Streetlight announced a new studio album, Night Vision, out on March the 14th via Frontiers Music. So, chaps, Dave, so let's have you first. What are you thinking about this?
To be fair, the one that actually jumps out to me there is Candice Night's solo album, because I liked her last one. I know people like, I know Dave's one of them, he much preferred Richie Blackmore when he wasn't doing folky stuff. I love Blackmore's Night. I think they're awesome. And when she did a solo album initially with Reflections, my thought was, what's the point? What are you going to be doing that's going to... But to be fair to her, she did do... I mean, it is in the Blackmore's Night vein, but there are a few other flavours on there. Some stuff that you could say would be more sort of Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac era. There's some decent stuff on there, and it's one of those albums that I don't play often, but when I do, I find myself going, I forgot how good that was. So I'm quite intrigued to see what she does, because Blackmore's Night haven't made an album for a while, so I'd be interested to see what she does with this, whether she goes a little further afield or if she's staying in that sort of vein. But I like her. I think she's a good singer, and I'll be intrigued to see what she does with that.
Kind of came out of left field as well, because there wasn't anything about it. No one sort of knew, and then all of a sudden...
Yeah, it's just come out of nowhere. So again, I'm like, I don't know how long she's been working on this. Maybe it's been something she's been toiling away at behind the scenes for ages. It might be a real spontaneous thing. I don't know. I'd be interested to find out.
Well, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Dave, anything out of those five that was caught?
I mean, picking up on the Candice Night to start with, I've heard the track, the single that's just been released, and it isn't Blackmore's Night, for sure. Is it rock? Nah, really, it's sort of smooth country, listening to it to me. There's a bit of guitar in there, but it's not really rock guitar, it's country. And as James said, I can respect the musicality and the compositions of the Blackmore's Night stuff, because, I mean, Blackmore's a phenomenal guitarist. He has been for 50 years. Yeah. But 50, nearer 60 years, probably. But it's not rock, and it's aimed at the wrong audience. And I think that listening to the Candice Night single, if the rest of the album's like that, they would be far better aiming it at country radio in America than aiming it at a rock audience. Because a rock audience, firstly, are going to say, Blackmore's Night, I either like it like James does, or it's not really rock, like I say. Then you distill that down, Candice Night's going to get a part of that because Richie Blackmore's not involved. So I think that aiming it at a rock audience is the wrong marketing move. I think it needs to be aimed at a country audience where it sits more comfortably. You listen to that, it's more Shania Twain, Faith Hill, that type of stuff, than it is Blackmore's Night. So if Blackmore's Night went rock, this certainly isn't rock. Moving on to the others that you suggested, Skunk Anansie, never a big fan, but you can't argue that they made an impression. Oh, yeah. They had an image that nobody else had got. I listened to it. It definitely reminds me of the old Skunk Anansie. Good luck to them. I think that rock's becoming far too compartmentalised and homogenised. And something like that comes in, kicks you up the backside and thinks, yeah, that's different. It's got to be applauded. It's got to be a good thing. Streetlight was one of the best debut albums when it came out last year before, can't remember which one. He sat in the inbox waiting to play. It's just finding the hours in the day to get round to it. But I'm looking forward to it. The single sounded promising, sounded like it was more of the same, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no.
Can't remember what the other two you said were, Pete.
Lord of the Lost, he's the lead vocalist, Chris Harms. His new single's out, and his album's out today, if memory serves.
I'm not really a Lord of the Lost fan, if I'm honest with you, and I get a bit blasé about these singers in bands feel the overwhelming need to release a solo album when they're in an active band. Some are good, some are not. A lot are indifferent.
Fair enough. And the other one was Alliance.
Alliance, I'm looking forward to. Yeah, absolutely. They've got that sort of balance between melodic rock and progressive. I think it works really, really well. It certainly worked on the stuff in the past. There's some great players. The Robert Berry one, isn't it? I'm sure it is. But yeah, again, something I'm looking forward to.
Excellent. I don't know about you, but the names just escaped me. The lead singer of Skunk Anansie.
Skin.
Scares the shit out of me. Have you seen the photograph that they released of the promo? She looks angry.
She looks like she reminds me in some regards of Pink, only taken to more scary degrees.
I was going to say,
but I think that again that's part of the image.
Yes.
I think that's something that a lot of bands are lacking these days.
Yeah,
they don't have a definite image that people can focus on, and therefore, because they've not got that image, people are more likely to pass over them and look at something else. Whereas the image grabs you to make you want to listen.
Definitely, yeah. No,
I'd agree. She's scary. But if she wants to come and talk to Fireworks, she's quite welcome.
Oh, definitely. Yes, definitely. There you go. The invitation is set out for Skin. Right. Well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen.
Badass.
And moving swiftly on, we come to the 60-second sound off. Now, as you well know, if you've listened to this podcast before, this is supposed to be where the chaps have 60 seconds. They can go on whatever they want to do. It can be a rant, it can be praise, it can be anything. We know it's going to be a rant because it always is with these two. We thought Skin was angry. You haven't seen James and Dave when they get going. So I have a sneaking suspicion that these next 120 seconds will not be the pleasantest for anybody in their crosshairs. So James is going to lead this one, and his topic is the short appeal of an EP. Now, I'm just going to put 60 seconds up on the timer. And James, your 60 seconds on the short appeal of an EP starts now.
Okay, so the reason I've said that is I like albums. I want to put an album on and listen to somebody. I don't like EPs. I don't see the point of them. When would I want to sit there and think, oh, I want to listen to 18 minutes of somebody? I don't want just 4 songs. If you're going to write 4 songs, write another 6, make an album. Don't bother with a single, because nobody bothers with singles in this day and age. And in the streaming day and age, an EP is a waste of time. Because if you put 4 songs out and 4 of them are bangers, then everyone's going, oh, I wish there was more of them. And if you put 4 songs out and only 1 or 2 of them are any good, then you're wasting everyone's time. So just make an album, commit. I don't really see why anyone would want an EP. It's like, it's a waste of time physically. It's a waste of time on streaming. So just make the effort and make an album, or just leave it. Don't bother with half-assing it with 4 songs.
Okay. And under the 60 seconds as well. Yeah, but interesting. I mean, I've got a bit of a thing about it, because Billy Idol, his last 2 albums were EPs. And I must admit, I thought they worked really well. But I do kind of get your drift on what you're saying. Yeah, they're sort of a bit of a non-entity in some respects, aren't they? They're either a little bit or nothing else.
What you've just said there is an oxymoron. His last album his last 2 albums were EPs. So they're not. So basically, his last 2 EPs were an album. So why not just put up an album?
Yeah. And I suspect if you added the 2 together, they'd make an album. But separately, you charge more
Yeah.
than you would for a single album. And that's part of the marketing here, is that record companies looking at it. How can we maximize what we can get out of it for minimum input? And EPs, 3 or 4 songs, seems a way, because you're not going to get them on CD, let's say, for example, for $4.99. They're going to charge you $8.99, $9.99, $10.99. Looking at Amazon, some of the buggers will probably even charge you 20 quid.
Yes, probably.
So it's a way of making more money for less, in my opinion.
I'm going to defend Billy here, because actually both albums came in, I think it was $7.99. So yes, it's 4 songs each, so that's 8 songs, $7.99 for each. So if you double that, you're talking about £16. Well, some albums cost £16 and more. So from the financial point of view, I'm not going to have that one. But I can understand what you're saying about I mean, he said that he released EPs because they were what he could fit in the time that he had in between various other things. So again, you can take that however which way you want it. But from the financial point of view, no, I'm not going to have that one. I'm going to defend poor Billy here.
I'm not just aiming at Billy Idol, it's like all EPs. For example, when The Darkness split up and they became the Stone Gods, they released the Burn the Witch EP to say, this is who we are now. And the 4 songs on that were brilliant. But again, you listen to the 4 songs, you're like, is that it? I want more. And then the album comes out, and 2 of the songs from the EP are on the album, and 2 aren't. So now you're left with 2 bangers that are just floating around doing nothing, because you're never going to put the EP on over the album.
No. I get it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's pros and cons both ways you look at it. But I think a lot of people, to be fair though, James, will agree with what you've said.
I get it from a streaming generation perspective. In fact, from a streaming generation perspective, I get just releasing 1 song at a time.
Yeah.
Because you release a song, people pick up on it, they like you. If they like you enough, they'll go and check out what you've done before. They'll put you down to keep an eye on for going forwards. Whereas if you're a non-entity and you release an album and you've not got something that'll draw people in, it'll just get ignored. So I get that. But you talk about Billy Idol releasing these, and I'm not having a go at Billy, because it won't be Billy that sets prices. But $7.99 for 4 songs, I think is excessive. So I think £16 for a CD is excessive. And I know that people will say, well, they were 12, 13, 14 quid 20 years ago. Yeah, I get that. But in an age where there's more and more choice, market forces should have driven prices down. And whilst they may have maintained prices to what they were 20 years ago, when you've got a proliferation of artists that you've got, 16, 20 quid for an album isn't going to encourage people to buy them. If they were under 10 quid, they may have bought 2.
Yeah.
So, again, it's short-term greed.
Right then, Dave, I have to ask you a question. Are you feeling all right?
I'm absolutely fine, mate.
Because your 60-second sound off does not contain a swear word in the title, and obviously
it doesn't. I know.
That worried me an awful lot, because I think the last few that we've done, you've practically stuck everyone in.
Yeah, saved all the expletives for the actual rant itself.
That's what I'm dreading, to be fair, James. That is what I am dreading. So, Dave, your 60-second sound off is the proliferation of project releases, which is quite difficult to say quickly, and I wouldn't want to say it 3 times in a row. Let's put it that way. So, your 60 seconds, Dave, on the clock, starting now.
Okay. I'm not going to point the finger at anybody in particular, because there's lots of parties that are guilty of it. But we seem to be getting more and more projects thrown together, either bands that aren't really bands, people that have never met, live at different sides of the planet, producing work together. If they're involved in the writing, I kind of get it to a certain degree. And things like Black Swan proved to be really, really good. But what's the worst of it now? We've got these sort of vanity projects that come along. We get a number of people that will come along and say, oh, aren't I fantastic? What I'll do is I'll get a bunch of songwriters in. I'll get a list of people as long as your arm to play on it, and then I'll release it. And whilst, they may have some good songs on there, you're never going to see it. And it's replacing real, genuine bands. Stop it.
Indeed.
There you go. No expletives at all.
Very good.
And under the 60 as well. A new record.
So again, Dave, I ask you, are you feeling all right?
Absolutely fine. I've just had a cup of tea. So, yeah. Any thoughts, guys? Am I right? Am I talking Amy Jackson?
No, I agree. I think with a project, there has to be a purpose to it.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say, right, I want to put together a band and I wanted to do a certain style of music and pay tribute to a certain era and get the relevant people in who could do it, which is basically what Bruce has done with Sound of the Wolf. He wanted to do an album that's like paying tribute to the Dio era. So he's like handpicked people to do that, which is fine. There's an actual purpose to that. But when it's like, especially when you've got so many guests on it, it can't possibly be cohesive. That's why I can't see the point of that. It's like every track's got a different singer, every track's got a different guitarist, every track's got a different style. It's not even an album, is it? There's no occasion. It's just a bunch of songs that happen to be on a disc together. That I don't see any merit in that at all.
I just see it diluting the waters, making it harder and harder for genuine bands to compete, and they sell into ever decreasing audiences. And it's why not? If you want to do it, put your money into something that's actually worthwhile. Put your money into a band, something that people could actually get out and see.
Yeah,
touring is a nightmare with these project things.
It's a non-starter.
One of the worst examples was one I had to review for Fireworks, and it was called Skills, and it had a real good lineup of musicians. There was Billy Sheehan on it. There was Brad Gillis on it. I forget who the drummer was, but he was like a named drummer, and I think the singer was a Brazilian kid. And on paper, it was like everybody was good at what they did. But they didn't write any of the songs. They didn't produce it. As Dave says, they never met. They recorded all their parts remotely. And the finished result was one of our colleagues, I think it was Ian, he said, if you close your eyes, you'd never know it was Brad Gillis and Billy Sheehan, because they were just literally doing a session. And it was like, well, what was the point of that? You've marketed it as it's got Brad Gillis on, it's got Billy. Let them be those people. Don't just say, right, we want you to play that, and they go in the studio, they knock it out and go, there you go. What is the point? It was just a waste of everybody's time and talent, which the opposite of that is Black Swan, where it is, even though they don't tour at the moment, they are an actual band. They are writing their own material. They are forging an actual identity. So things like that have merit. If it's like, oh, what if we introduce this singer to that guitarist, form a band, or something where you're creating it. But when it's like, oh, we've got a bunch of in-house written songs, so we'll get that guy from this band to sing them and that guy from that to play guitar. That's not a band. It's just a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the cynic in me says it's an easier way to make money. Yeah. Because what you do is you pay somebody for a song, you pay somebody for a session. They don't get royalties on whatever you make on the album. Therefore, it works out cheaper and a lot less complicated. And it's not music to me. It's one step up from AI.
Yeah.
So there we have it. I knew it wouldn't be all rays of sunlight and gushing praise. Indeed, it was the rants that we expected. And to be fair, we want the rants, don't we?
Just saying, when you call a segment a 60-second sound off, you're not really inviting us to praise anyone. You're wanting us to rant.
Oh, the rants are what makes it worthwhile. So the chaps have got some very relevant points. Do you agree with EPs? Do you agree with what Dave says as well about these project issues? Again, let us know, comment down below. Let us know your thoughts and feelings about these, because I know there's people out there with very strong thoughts and feelings about EPs and projects and a lot of the other stuff we discuss as well. So let us know. Right, we're going to have a song now. And these two songs that these two chaps have chosen are obviously John Sykes' tracks as well to help remember him as well. So the first one, Dave's choice, is Cold Sweat by Thin Lizzy. Here we go.
Chances on the outside are looking pretty slim. I feel so lucky on the inside. I feel I'm gonna win. haven't seen that much in ages. I might spend it in stages and move out to Las Vegas. Stone cold summer and stone cold sweat, running down the back of my neck. To lose means trouble, to win pays double, and I have me a heavy bet. Cold, cold sweat, I put my money in a suitcase. They say chances on the outside. I've got a whole month's wages. Stone cold summer and stone cold sweat, stone cold crazy, place another bet.
And that was a wonderful Cold Sweat by Thin Lizzy. Cracking choice there, Dave, really was. Right, we're going to move on to our main topic. So anyone who's read any of my reviews will know that I have a certain disdain for concept albums. I think I can count on one hand the amount that I actually like, with Alice Cooper's The Last Temptation and Threshold's Legends of the Shire taking 2 of those spots. Recently, I have been subjected to a couple more of these concept albums, and although the music's decent enough, don't get me wrong, let's get it out there. It's about getting the story from beginning to an end that appears to be the problematic issue. I think one recently I listened to introduced 7 characters in the first song and tried to give them all backstories within the first 3 or 4 songs. And by the middle of the album, I quite frankly couldn't give a shit what happened to the hero, if he succeeded in his quest, because you couldn't remember who the bugger was and basically what his sidekicks were supposed to be doing. Then you've got to add in a villain or an antagonist into all that. He gets his own subplot and just forget it. By the end of the record, you don't care less. It seems to me that the point of this is that people are trying to prove how clever they are with characters or plot twists, and they forget the actual point of getting the story from the beginning to a satisfactory conclusion. And judging from some of other reviewers' experience with concept albums, and from general comments as well from our social media feeds, I'm not alone in this annoyance. So what do we think about concept album, chaps? I mean, I suppose we have to define what a concept album is. There also seems to be a bit of a question around this. Is it one like I said, the Alice Cooper's Last Temptation, where there is obviously a storyline running all the way through it? Or is it more like Lordi's new one, which is basically based around a central theme but has offshoots coming off, but they also like come back into this theme? Guys, what do you think a concept album is? Dave, tell us your view.
I tend to agree on that, Pete. It does cover quite a lot of bases. There are albums that are conceptual or semi-conceptual where you've got a character or a group of characters and they go off on different stories. Or you've got something where it's almost like a cross between a rock album and a theatrical stage production, where you've got a cogent story from beginning to end. There are an awful lot out there, and you're quite right. There are people that tend to try and make them too complicated. They tend to try and cram into 50, 60 minutes worth of music what you'd get into something like Lord of the Rings, and it ain't going to work. It just becomes overwhelming. But when it's done properly and when it's done right, the results can be amazing. One that stands out to me from the 80s, obviously, is Operation Mindcrime.
Yes.
What Queensryche did there was brilliant. Not only did the music match the pace of the story, the songs were memorable, and it just stands out, still shines out like a beacon today. The Threshold one to a lesser audience, obviously didn't get the mainstream, but you get things like Marillion with Misplaced Childhood, Dark Side of the Moon, those sorts of things, conceptual, semi-conceptual. It really depends, I think, firstly on, does the music engage? Because if the music doesn't engage, and you get nowadays, there's lots of these symphonic things where it hits you with a wall of sound, and after 2 minutes, you want to switch off and listen to the guy's drill 3 doors down. But a lot of them don't get the music, and the same applies to any album of music. You need a dynamic. You need something that's going to hit you in the face. You need something that's going to lull you into a deep sleep, up and down all the time, so that you constantly, what's coming next? No, oh yeah, they've been playing this for 20 minutes. Chances are I'm going to be listening to the same crap for another 20 minutes. So if you get the music right and you get a lyricist as good as Jeff Tate or as good as Fish, then you can get a piece of art that is both a story and almost like a rock opera, if you like. So done well, I think that there's definitely a place for them. But it's like I talked about earlier about project albums. Done badly or done indifferently, there's too many of them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, James, do you think that they do have an unfair rap concept albums? And if so, why?
I think for me, the thing is, a concept album has to have a story that you can understand.
Yes.
And the songs have to tie in with it. Mm-hmm. And that makes it difficult to just cherry pick the odd track off a concept album to be, in the olden days, a single or something like that, because you're taking something really out of context. As Dave mentioned there with Operation Mindcrime, some albums have basically made bands successful. If I was going to name some off the top of my head, Operation Mindcrime is what basically brought Queensryche to the mainstream, and it's a concept album. Welcome to My Nightmare with Alice Cooper, concept album. That's what basically put him over the top as a solo artist. The Who with Tommy and then Quadrophenia. That's two of their best known works. So those sort of things, they have a really good soundtrack to a story that is memorable. So that's the key. When you mentioned this was going to be a topic, I actually went through and I was like, how many concept albums do I own? And it's not that many for that reason, because a lot of the time I just want to put on an album to listen to while I'm working. I don't want to have to concentrate on a story and know where I am and what's coming up next. That, to me, it's more like that old school album experience of where you sit with headphones on, you've got the sleeve, and you're just concentrating on the album. A lot of people don't do that these days, which is a shame because it's really nice when you do it. But I think that's the thing, concept albums, you have to be in the mood for one. It's not something you can just stick on in the car or things like that. But yeah, there are some really, really good ones, like those I mentioned. And my favourite one of all time, I was like, I can't believe that didn't cry. War of the Worlds, Jeff Wayne, which is still filling arenas now, decades and decades later, and he just keeps refreshing the lineup of who's in it. The storyline never really changes. It's the same thing. We know, everyone knows the story, and it was so well done. The initial cast was brilliant on that first album, when he's got Chris Thompson and Phil Lynott on there, and then he's got David Essex on there, Justin Hayward, and then he obviously did A New Generation when he was bringing in people like Gary Barlow and stuff like that, and he just kept refreshing it. But musically and storyline-wise, it stayed pretty much constant, and it still works. He absolutely nailed that, and that's what he's known best for. And another one would be Jesus Christ Superstar. That's a concept album that then became a huge musical, and obviously it's become films. And you look at the original cast on that. People say, oh, it was a rock opera, but it's still a concept album at the same time. It's telling the story of Jesus. And you had Ian Gillan on there, and you had Murray Head on there, and John Gustafson was playing on it. There's loads of great musicians. It was very much a rock thing written by a musical guy, and that's now transcended into, well, it's a big stage show, and it became, there was a film, and it's one of those things that everyone knows the story of, and it works. So I think that's the key. You need to have a good story. The music needs to match it, like Dave said, with Operation Mindcrime, and you need to be in the mood to appreciate it. Because if you just want something to work out to, you're not going to be picking War of the Worlds. You're going to be picking AC/DC or something like that. So it's something you have to be in the mood for to really appreciate them properly.
Yeah, I mean, the analogy you made there, James, in terms of opera is absolutely right. Before rock opera, there was opera. And that really is that they were the concept albums or concept stories of the day. You've got 90 minutes of music that somebody put a story underneath rather than just separate pieces. And that's really where rock operas and concept albums have kind of evolved from. It's like you said, it's like anything. War of the Worlds is a great example. I saw it in Leeds 6-7 years ago. I think it had got Jason Donovan was in the lineup. I think Nathan James was in the lineup. And it's fantastic. Great show. And it continues to be a great show. It continues to put bums on seats. It has its place. It's not something that you're quite right that you want to sit and listen to all the time. But very rarely, it's one of the ones that you could. Mindcrime, for example, I think, because it's just littered with great songs. You could take them apart, listen to them independently, and they're great songs. They're memorable. They've got hooks. They've got choruses. And that's where a lot of them fall down, is that they try to be too complicated for their own good, in my opinion.
Do you think then that it's been a case of because all the ones that we're naming are albums of quite some time ago. If I said to you, chaps, right, name me a modern great concept album, what comes to your mind?
I would say, if you not necessarily a concept album, but concepts overall, Avantasia.
Right, but a concept album. Give me a concept album that you've listened to that you think recently that has knocked my socks off.
Everybody Powwow by the Powwow Rock Orchestra. And I think I'm the only person who heard it. I got sent that to review at Fireworks, and it was written by a bloke called Simon Webb, who's done a lot of musical stuff. And it tells the story of a guy who goes across to America and he ends up fighting against the Indians as a soldier, but he falls in love with a squaw, basically, and he's all conflicted. And it's the story of that. And the band that were put together was superb. Robert Hart did all the vocals, and then there was this other lass who did the vocals of the. But instead of having like you said, with like dozens of characters, it's basically all told from the character of Robert Hart's perspective, and then this lass. So there's only the two singers. Bernie Marsden played on it. I think Mickey Moody played on it as well. There was loads of them. Loads of the old sort of early Whitesnake guys, and it was just littered with real good musicians. And I thought that was a really well executed piece. It told a story that you could understand, and the songs were really good and really well sung. I think it's probably Robert Hart's best vocal performance. And I've yet to meet anybody else who's heard it. So it's a real shame. But that would be a modern example of a good concept album for me.
I think that I've got it into my head that they're almost like Christmas songs. The best Christmas songs are 40-year-old. So the best Christmas songs are Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day, Merry Christmas Everybody. Everybody remembers those. They wheel them out year after year. And I think it's the same with concept albums. You mentioned the two from The Who. You mentioned I mentioned Dark Side of the Moon, Operation Mindcrime. It kind of stopped because I think that there's somewhere along the way they've lost the ability to think, well, we need to put a concept together, but we really need to make it interchangeable. We really need those great, memorable songs. And that's where it would run in parallel to like Jesus Christ Superstar, because you could see it, you could sit there and you could sing along to it. And I think a lot of it's lost that. So that's why I think, from my perspective, I won't say that the days of the great concept album are done, because never say never. But I don't see anything coming along like that that's going to have the same impact.
Another good one I would mention that's in the more modern era, because it recently got reissued as well, would be Nicola Kotsev's Nostradamus, which is classed as a rock opera, but again, it's very much a concept album because it tells the story of Nostradamus. And the album had a phenomenal cast, and that, to Pete's point, there was quite a lot of characters in it, but he chose very distinct singers, so it was very easy to follow who was who. And the singers he had on it, so he had Jolene Turner playing Nostradamus, he had Glenn Hughes playing the King, he had Jon Land as the Inquisitor, he had Alana Miles as, I think she was the Queen, and then Sass Jordan was on it as well, and Goran Edman and Doogie White. So like every one of those is a world-class rock vocalist in their own right. And when they were singing, it was very easy because they've all got distinctive voices. You're like, oh, well, now this is Nostradamus, and now it's the Queen, and now it's the King. And it was very easy to follow without having the booklet, who was saying what, who was doing what. And again, in terms of how the songs were put together, it was a very good mix of orchestral and driving rock. Some of them were very just pure rock songs, some of them were very orchestral songs, and some of them meshed the two. So that would be a good example for me of an album that I got quite engrossed in, followed the story with ease, and was very impressed with the quality of not only the songs but the cast, everything. That worked for me. And I remember it getting, to Dave's point, dismissed in classic rock. In their review, they just put, oh, it's got all these singers on and it's very well done, but as an exercise in self-indulgence, it's hard to beat. That's not very fair, really, I don't think. I thought it was a really good piece of work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I want to throw Rick Wakeman in as well, because he did some concept albums that were absolutely superb.
Yeah.
But do we think as well that because of the amount of bands that are around now and the amount of stuff that's been released, the concept album that we know and loved, some of the ones that we mentioned, they've just been dumbed down so much by all this stuff that's coming out that we've kind of lost the art of a good concept album.
I think that you're right in terms of we've lost the art of doing it. I don't think the ones that we've mentioned are being dumbed down, because I think that they'll always be held up as shining examples. This is what you should aim at.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like I said, the one I had to listen to was, like I say, had about 17 characters in it, the main character, and by halfway through, he tried to give every single one a backstory.
Yeah.
And like James pointed out, there was about 4 different singers, but obviously more characters than there was singers.
Yeah.
Just didn't care halfway through. By the end of it, you just thought, I don't really care what happens to this chap. And, that's the point I'm trying to make. Do we think that because there's so many of them now being released, there's so many bands, the good albums that we've mentioned, they will always stand up because of what they were and how well executed they were. But because of the way we've gone now with music and the fact there's so many bands, there's so many easy ways to release songs and albums, that the concept album, in some respect, it will never be as good as it was unless someone throws a whole load of money at it, because there's just too much out there.
I don't think throwing money at it's the answer. I don't think that will create a great one. I think you're right. I think that there is too much now. What people expect, the way production works, I don't see anything coming along in the metal sphere to rival Mindcrime, for example. And the rock stuff, I don't think that anything will match Tommy or Quadrophenia or Dark Side of the Moon. It's just, there were footnotes to a bygone era. And I think, sadly, the world's moved on. And I don't think that we'll see their like again, if you like. I'm not saying there won't be concept albums. There are always people out there that's ambitious and want to actually write a story. But it's getting the balance right, like you say. So the best stories are 2 people. Romeo and Juliet, it's basically about 2 people. Everybody else is superfluous to the story. Yes, you've got background characters, but you really don't need to know the ins and outs of what they had for breakfast. It's the two stars that you're focusing on. And I think that's when you talk about you've got 17 characters, and that's not an exaggeration, because I've seen them like that. There are too many. It just gets too self-indulgent and you just get lost.
I think the only way a band could really succeed with one now is if they make sure they've got a good, engaging story, because the sort of art of the album is a little bit passé unless you, like us who physically buy albums. The streaming age, it's the playlist mentality, the cherry pick songs here and there. So that you're on a non-starter from the beginning with that. So what you'd have to do is you have to make sure that the story was engaging enough that you could maybe turn it into a visual medium as well. So have these songs on YouTube and maybe release the songs as chapters of the story, and people would engage with the videos. That would maybe be the only way you could sort of lure people in now. But yeah, I think if you was to just say, I've made this concept album, it's about so-and-so and so-and-so, and they do this, that, and the other, it's a niche market now. It's only appealing to people who buy physical albums. It's not going to appeal to the Spotify generation.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right.
Part of the problem, as well, sorry, Dave, but just to pick up on something that James has just said there, don't you think that the streaming generation in some respects has destroyed the concept album? Because James, valid point, when we used to listen to concept albums, War of the Worlds, especially I'm thinking about now, is that they had that wonderful album cover where you could, like you say, you sat down, you had it playing in the background, you're looking at the album cover, you've got the script in essence, you've got the characters, you can follow it, you can sort of understand what's going on. You sit now in Spotify or any other streaming services, because there are other ones out there, and you sort of lose that visual impact of being able to look at the cover, look at the album, look at the CD, in that respect, and in essence follow the story along. Whereas now you've just got to use your ears because you've got nothing to look at. Do you think that's a part of the problem as well?
It's just how I think times move on, isn't it? It's like going into a garage and say, I like that new car that you've got there on the forecourt, but have you got one with a starting angle? It's just how people consume things. We're a bunch of grumpy old farts. The new generation that's coming along, that's going to replace us, that's actually going to be the consumers of music going forward, they don't care. So you've got to cater for that market. So yeah, I think you're right that those sorts of things will have destroyed what we had as the experience of it. Yeah. But if those people have never experienced that, it's, what they say, you've never had, you never miss.
That's really sad to say that, isn't it? That it's been destroyed because of a new generation and the way that they understand things. It just seems so wrong.
Well, that's the thing. Is like we could sit with a pair of headphones and a vinyl album or a CD and listen to it start to finish and not think that's weird. But if I looked at my stepsons and said I was doing that, they'd be like, "Yeah, all right." But they could sit and watch 2-hour videos on YouTube of somebody playing a game, and I'd be like, "Why don't you just play it yourself?" So it's how people engage, which is why I thought if you're going to do a concept album, the way you're going to snare more people, it would have to have a visual element. Yeah. Because people have short attention spans. They tend to, younger people especially, tend to listen to music on the move. Bung their earphones in, listen to it on the phone when they're going to and from work, or when they're in the gym, or when they're in the car, whatever. They don't sit and listen to an album like we used to.
No. There's another point there as well that I was thinking about. Do we think that the concept album has evolved a bit more than maybe we'd like to think? Because we mentioned Avantasia, and some respects the Dominium as well with their zombie theme stuff, and there's the Lordi stuff that has like a central theme that the songs sprout off from, but they always come back to it. But it's not a story. It's not going from A to B, but it's kind of bringing it all back to this central core all the time. Do we think that concept albums have evolved, and maybe, as Dave rightly tends to point out every single episode, we're 3 old farts? Although I know, James, you get a bit upset with Dave calling you old because you're probably the youngest out of all of us by quite a while.
I don't mind being called a fart, but leave the old out of it.
But do you think that maybe now it's us that are missing the point? Maybe have concept albums evolved and we're the dinosaurs sitting behind and missing all the point of it?
No, because we know best.
I think that they have diversified, Pete, and you're right. It's not just about being a linear story that runs from A to B anymore, which to a certain extent followed what preceded it on stage. You've got a play, or you've got an opera, or you've got something like that. It's got a clear storyline with a start, end, and a middle piece. Nowadays, you're dropped in somewhere, and then it goes off in all sorts of different directions. Films have become the same. Tastes have got more complex. Yeah. Way things are put together have got more complex. But the problem with anything like that, certainly that's artistically related, be it celluloid, be it pictures, be it music, anything like that, the more complicated you make something, the more heads it goes over. Therefore, the less of an audience that you've actually got that is going to appreciate it.
Yeah. Definitely,
and I think that's the crux of it, really. The idea of a concept album is not going to go away, and there will still happen. As I said, there are still people out there who have got that creative urge within them to write them. I mean, Dream Theater have wrote some great ones, but when you start making it too complex, it's not a medium that I think works particularly well. As I referred to Tolkien earlier with Lord of the Rings, you look at Lord of the Rings, and it took him 3 huge volumes to create that story. And then, to be fair, it took Peter Jackson 3 great films to put that story across in a visual medium. And he accepted that he was going to have to cut out some of the superfluous, what he felt were superfluous characters in the books to create a story that ran. Did a great job, but to apply that to today's concepts, not only have you got far more people creating something for people to listen to, therefore your audience is diluted, because you can go that bit further and things have evolved to make it more complicated and less of a linear story. I think that you're going to play to ever-diminishing audiences. If somebody came up with another Dark Side of the Moon, another Tommy, I think that there'd be a market for it. But I think that would be more in a West End setting than on a piece of music that people are physically going to sit down and listen to. I think it lends itself now more towards an audio-visual medium rather than just an audio medium.
Yeah. Do we think, therefore, that do they have an unfair rap? Are we possibly being harsh on them? Are we slating them too much? Are we kind of missing the point, like I say? But do we think that concept albums have an unfair reputation at this moment in time? Or an undeserved reputation, should I say?
Depends who you ask. As I said originally, done well, they're great. Done indifferently or done badly, people are just going to ignore them. So I think that the bad rap applies to people who've heard the bad ones and not really taking much notice of the good ones. So there'll always be a place for them for me simply because of the 4 or 5 that we've mentioned that are just timeless.
Yeah,
and they're great stories, they're great music, and they'll always be that. But the rest you can take or leave, and I think that's where we're at.
James, what are your opinions on it?
I'm in agreement with that. When I was listing which ones I earned, Kiss Music from the Old Days, a concept album, I enjoy it, but I couldn't tell you what the story is. Some bloke on an island or something, I don't know. I like the songs, but I can't engage with the story. And Dio did Magica, which was one of his better latter-day albums, I thought. But again, if you ask me to describe the story, it's something about aliens and love and something. That's as much as it even tells the story at the end, and I've never really listened to it because it didn't engage me. And that ultimately is what you need. It has to engage on a cerebral level with the story as well as an audio level with the music. You don't get both of those right, it's not going to work.
I think you're absolutely right there, James. I think part of the problem is you have somebody like Dio come along that's got such an illustrious history with Rainbow, with Sabbath, and then Holy Diver, and then he comes and says, "Yeah, I'm going to write a concept album," which is great, fantastic, but it's always going to be compared to what he's done before.
Yeah,
Mindcrime stands alone as probably the pinnacle of Queensryche's career. You could argue it's a toss. That Rage for Order through Empire period, they were untouchable, in my opinion. But you could probably say that they really hit their stride and they were as good as they were ever going to get when Mindcrime came out. And you could argue the same about Floyd with Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay, yeah, again, some excellent points. Again, listeners, give us your views as well. Concept albums, do you like them? Do you hate them? Why do you like them? Why do you hate them? I'm going to put these two chaps on the spot now and say, name me your ultimate concept album that you've heard. And we'll go with James first.
What I said earlier, War of the Worlds. I think that's just as good as it gets. Iconic music, storyline everyone knows and can follow and remember. And like I say, it's been going decades and it's still packing them in. Yeah,
no, that's a great choice, is that one. Dave, can you top that one?
No, but I'd go with Mindcrime. Mindcrime always stands out for me. It was a pivotal point in the 80s.
Yeah, no, again, another good choice. Well, again, as I say, let us know your thoughts and feelings on concept albums. It's one of those topics because you just have to look at some of the comments that have been left on other things, and people absolutely slate them. Some people love them. But I think recently the quality has gone down. And I got to agree with these two. Unless you get the actual bits in between the whole thing right, the music's got to be right, the storyline's got to be right, the lyrics and the people singing it have got to be right, then there's never going to be another great one. The stuff that's coming out at this moment certainly does not compare to sort of the ones that have been named before. So will we ever see another good concept album? No, I'll just have to wait and see, I think. Right, we're going to move on to. It's a recently new. Well, we debuted it last podcast we did. It's flushed down the crapper. It's basically another chance for these guys to have a rant. But this time they haven't told me what they're going to rant about, so I'm going to be intrigued to hear. So we're going to go with James first. What is going to go swirling down the toilet for you?
Right, so last time I put Robbie Williams down. I was very tempted to do another flush because I found out he's got Glenn Hughes on his album now. But I'll leave that alone. So, that anger aside, one thing that I was like, why do these things still exist? And it's cassettes. Not so long back, I had to do some artwork because this band were releasing it on vinyl, on CD, and a limited edition cassette. And it's the first cassette I'd ever done in my entire career doing an inlay for. And I did it. And then I was like, who is this for? Because very few people have cassettes nowadays, or cassette players. Yes, there's a resurgence in interest in vinyl. I understand that, because vinyl's got the big tactile cover. Oh, I like the warm sound of vinyl. Yeah, I can get that. CDs, still my format of choice. Digital, straight away, you can just skip, no problem. Got the booklet. Cassettes, the crap. You know, if you want to skip a track, you've got to fast forward and guess where you are in the thing. They can get chewed up. They're inferior in sound quality. If you haven't rewound it, you can't just put the album on again. You just got to wait for it to go. Then you've got to fix it with a pencil when it inevitably gets all tangled up. I'm like, why are these still a thing? It'd be like, what's next? Oh, limited edition 8-track cartridge. No, we've moved on. They were crap as well. So, and it's not just little bands doing it as like a sort of kitsch retro thing. Even big labels are doing it. Michael Ball and Alfie Boe, Stadium Sellers, the new album, available on vinyl, CD, and limited edition cassette. And yeah, they've got some like older generation fans. Even those people don't want a cassette. So what are they for? They're crap. So get rid of them. Let's move on.
Oh, the days of when you hear that and you run to the tape player, take it out so gently, the tape's hanging off, and you get the pencil, you're trying to screw it. But oh my God, yes, I certainly don't miss them. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the sign. I don't know. Dave feels the same. Maybe it's the signs of our advancing age. But the cassette kind of holds a bit of a soft spot in the heart.
It kind of does. I mean, I remember when I first started buying music, I bought cassettes.
Me too.
Because they were convenient, more convenient. You could stick it in a little portable radio or whatever. But you're absolutely right. They were pain in the arse. The sound quality were crap. Played through crap equipment, at least anyway. You never were too sure if the damn thing were going to break. Although advances moved on so that you could fast forward, and the machine, depending on what you got, knew where the next track was. To a certain extent, yeah, they were a pain in the arse, and I don't know why they've come back.
Because I started the same way. The first albums I ever got were all cassettes, and I had a little Walkman and everything. Because I used to play my dad's vinyl, and I used to tape onto and make my own mixtapes of stuff I liked. Yeah, much like what they do now with playlists. And then I discovered CDs, and I was like, these are so much better. And I got a CD Walkman, and then suddenly that was I don't know why I want these. So I've got some behind me. Those are like old cassettes, and they must have been in that cupboard for 20 odd years, never been touched, and unlikely to ever be touched again. They're just there, and I don't know. I don't understand why anybody would want a cassette these days. Not when you've got MP3s, vinyl, CDs, streaming. What would a cassette bring? Nothing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're right. I think we can safely flush them down the rock and metal crapper. Right, moving on to you, Dave. What is your pet peeve, or what is your peeve that you want to flush away?
Dynamic pricing.
Oh, yes.
Now, I get that gigs, particularly bigger gigs with bigger names, are becoming ridiculously expensive to start with. 300 notes or whatever to go and see those two Mancunian mole rats or whatever. I wouldn't go and see them if they played at local pub and they were giving away free beer all night, but that's just my personal choice. But in all seriousness, a show gets announced, you look at it and you think, tickets, they vary from 50 quid to 70 quid. Let me think about that for a little bit. Then you decide, yeah, okay, I'm going to go. You go on 2 days later and they vary from 90 quid to 120 quid. Yeah. Because the ones that have gone so far have sold quite well. Now, I fully understand market forces, but I think it's just raking it in. I don't think that the band are going to get paid any more just because they've sold more tickets at a higher price. So they're not the ones making the money. They'll have agreed this is our appearance fee. Unless they've got a Peter Grant-style very astute manager that says we'll have X percentage at door. But it seems to me, once again, what they're trying to do is they're trying to replace diminishing physical music sales by ripping fans off some other way. And it needs to stop. It's immoral, for want of a better description. And it's people who've already got more money than they know what to do with, raking in even more at the expense of the rest of us who have to work for a living.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I don't think anyone's going to argue against that one. So, yeah, I think we can safely flush that one away. And
so that's rant 2.
Yeah, we're on a roll here, chaps. I want to add in lyric videos. They are driving me nuts at this moment in time, because every single one I've seemed to have seen, the video bears no relation to the bloody song at all. You know, the background or whatever they're trying to portray you know, the song could be about flowers and unicorns, and there's a devil dancing round in the background, shaking broken bones and whatever. And you're thinking, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
It's absolutely driving me nuts. If you're going to make a lyric video, and I understand why you make them, I've not got an issue with that whatsoever, but please make the bloody video relevant to the song. That's all I'm asking. It's a simple thing, isn't it? I mean, am I going overboard here, chaps? You know, help me out.
No, you're not. And it's only going to get worse because there's going to be more and more AI-generated videos because it's cheaper than setting up and filming the actual band performing or having a drone flying over them while they're stood in a field or anything like that. Oh, well, just, here's the lyrics and AI will knock some up and we'll stick that on YouTube and nobody will care.
Yeah, that's absolutely, you hit the nail on the head there, James. The first two things that sprang to mind when Pete said that were AI and cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, you know, if you're going to do a video properly, you're looking at a few grand because you're going to need a proper film crew. It's going to be properly lit. And, yeah, there's you can do stuff on your iPhone now and get really good results. So, yeah, you can, all right. But it's still going to be a time and money expensive experience.
It is, yeah. And it's always going to be a trade-off. And the more music that's out there competing for finite incomes, the harder it's going to be to stand out. But I will point out, look at Nesta.
Yeah.
Look at Remedy. Yeah. Bands like that, they have invested time and money into proper videos, and it's starting to pay dividends.
That's exactly it.
So there's the lesson to be learned.
Yeah.
Speculate to accumulate.
Precisely. Because, like you said, to stand out in the crowd.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be making an AI lyric video go viral. Nobody's going to share that. But if you've got something that, you know, looks like an actual production or some real effort's gone into it and people look at that and, like I say, visually engage with it and go, oh, hey, have you seen that? And then they'll share it. Yeah. Then all of a sudden you're starting to reach different people. So, yeah, just knocking out these lyric videos, I don't really know what the purpose of them is.
Yeah. I want to point out that not all lyric videos are terrible. There are some good ones out there, but the ones I've seen recently, I said they just bear no relation to the song. And the worst thing is you actually find yourself watching the damn video and not paying attention to the lyrics and half the song. And it's like, just please make the bloody things relevant. That's all I'm asking. That's all I want.
And highlighting the lyrics, a lot of the time, they're not that great. They're just, you know, we're not talking like anything like epic Tolkien-esque prose half the time, are we? It's just pretty bog standard by the numbers stuff. So why highlight that? If you're highlighting anything, I like the band, I like the tune. Something that'll make people go, oh, that's good, as opposed to, oh, yeah, there's a good word. It's the rhyme every two lines. That's good, isn't it? Yeah. Nobody's bothered.
Oh, it's funny when you get like the yeah, and you're thinking, oh, I wonder what the next one's going to be. Oh, yeah, there we go.
To me, it's just like watching a karaoke backing track when you're in the pub.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Yes, let's flush these three down the crapper quickly. Again, people, let us know your thoughts on what the guys have said. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know. Personally, yeah, I think these three are worthy of swirling into the cesspit of all the stuff that lays in the sewers. So, yeah, let's go with that. Right, let's try and have a bit of music now. Again, this is James's choice, and I know James is a fan of Blue Murder because he has mentioned it once or twice, and it's Black Hearted Woman, which, again, another belting track.
Like a fool, almost hypnotized.
And there we have James's Choice, Black Hearted Woman by Blue Murder. And again, rest in peace, John Sykes. Right, we're going to do a new section now. It's called Unpopular Opinion. I'm going to read out a statement I've heard floating around on the internet that seems to be taken as fact. And our two experts will give us their take. Hopefully we'll get a bit of a juicy argument going. But knowing my luck, they'll probably agree with each other and it'll fall flat on its face. But let's see what happens anyway. So, rock and metal should embrace change instead of clinging to the past. Nostalgia often dominates discussions, but some argue that the obsession with the older styles limits the genre's evolution and mainstream relevance. Dave, come on, let's have those pearls of wisdom from you.
Well, who said it to start with?
It was just something I read on the internet on a... it was a forum that was basically saying rock and metal is dead and this is why.
One penned by Gene Simmons by any chance, was it?
As far as I'm aware, no.
As somebody who likes progressive music, I've got sympathy with that. Yes, everything needs to evolve. Otherwise, music could never evolve between people banging sticks on rocks. But there's room for both sides of it. Mm-hmm. Can we have more classic rock? Can we have more 70s style progressive rock? Yes, if it's good, the more the merrier. I think that what we need is more people that have got innovation and innovative ideas to swell the pool of what we listen to even more. The last real great changes I saw in rock and metal circles was when Nightwish came along, and they sort of fused the operatic and the symphonic together. I don't think we've had any major advances since then, so we're long overdue one. But yeah, it's anything like the synthwave that seems to be popular. All that sort of, what I don't like is that they come up with all these bloody great complex names for genres and subgenres that you've got no prayer of remembering. When I was the Buttercallow youth, it was hard rock and heavy metal. That was it. They were your choices.
And what
bit like sausage, beans, and chippings. Them's your choices.
Was there anything wrong with that?
No.
Are we making it too complicated? Are we clinging to the past? I mean, first and foremost, are we clinging to the past as a genre? Are we not looking forward? Dave, you pointed out that we need a change. Is AI going to help us with that, or is it going to kill it?
Kill it, as far as I'm concerned. Music's created by people.
Yes. Yeah.
And that, to that point, if whoever this quote came from is, you need innovation to move things forward, AI's not going to innovate, because all AI does is replicate what it's already seen before. That's what AI training is. It goes out and it maps from all these different sources and then basically goes, more of that. So if you say to AI, go listen to a bunch of 70s rock and then write a song, it'll write a 70s rock song. It isn't going to go, what we need to do is bring that into 2025. It's not going to do it. It'll just do more. It'll this is a song that sounds like Free or Bad Company or whatever. AI can't help innovate. Innovation comes from humans.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So why aren't we innovating then? What is stopping us, do you think? Do you think we are stuck in the past, James?
Absolutely not. I think the past should be embraced, and I think this is proven by when shows use old songs and all of a sudden the spike in popularity because they're being found by a new audience. Things like, you look at what happened with Journey when they were used in The Sopranos.
Don't Stop Believing, yeah.
Yeah, and Don't Stop Believing got a whole new lease of life. Same thing happened with Queen when Don't Stop Me Now was used on an advert, and all of a sudden it became one of Queen's biggest songs. And I'm pretty sure it's happened with Toto recently, I think with Stranger Things, or one of those shows on Netflix had used an old, I'm sure it was Toto, and suddenly their streaming numbers have gone boomf, because all these younger people are like, hey, what a cool band, who are those guys? Not realising they've been on the go decades. So I think there's a whole mine of stuff that's undiscovered. I'm doing it to this day. I'm finding stuff that was written before I was born or that was out, and I'm like, holy shit, how have I missed these guys? And that's just the way music goes. I think that's where your evolution is. You start off listening to one sort of thing, but you'll branch off. Like I started listening to sort of what would be classed nowadays as hair metal. It's not, but that was how I started. But then from there, I was like, where did these guys come from? I like Whitesnake, that led me to Deep Purple. Deep Purple led me to Sabbath. And now my musical range is so wide, it's all branched off into all these different things. That's the evolution of it. So for me, you should embrace the past. And in terms of innovation musically, I think what a lot of bands do when you get bands like some like Rival Sons or something like that, it's classed as they do retro rock. Yeah, they do it, but with a modern production. You listen to some 70s rock albums, and they were desperately in need of remastering compared to what we listen to now. So you get bands that they'll take a style from the old days, but they'll apply a modern production to it. That to me is innovation. That to me is moving things forward. You don't have to change the dynamics of the music, but sonically it's moved forward, definitely.
I don't think that our genre is living in the past per se. I think there are certain sections of the listening public that are, and certainly people that post opinions like that on websites. We can all point to people who say, well, don't listen to anything beyond 1973 or 1987 or whatever. And yeah, if that's how you choose to live, that's fine. I don't think I'm like that. I'm always open to new stuff coming along. Some of it grabs me, a lot of it doesn't. But as long as people still want to write and create, I think that there will always be place not only for our genres, but anybody's. Be it punk, be it pop, be it whatever. I think that the real potential problem is that we come along and we get a generation that aren't driven by that creative urge and are quite happy that a computer does it all for them. That's the real problem. And that applies to not only to music, it applies to art, it applies to TV and to films. I get why the whole problem with all the strikes in Hollywood over the studios wanting the rights to the image of the people that they were employing for one film. So that we can do another 10 with an AI-generated version of you that we don't have to pay you for. So I think that's the problem.
Yeah. No. Again, yeah. Good points. Good point, especially with the generations and AI. It is a fear. I mean, we've discussed it umpteen times, haven't we, chaps? That AI and industries, they help some things and certainly don't help others. And the music one appears to be one that it certainly doesn't help. But again, playing devil's advocate here, do you sometimes feel like when you get an album to review and it says, this is, great 80s replica stadium rock, and you think, why does it have to be going back to the 80s rock? Why are you doing that sound? Is there not a newer sound that you can take on? I mean, do we think there's too many of the sort of we've based our album on yesteryear kind of out there, or there's not enough people sort of saying this is a modern take of whatever?
I generally don't tend to take any notice of what somebody says an album sounds like. Most of the time I found that's PR bullshit.
Yes.
I like to stand and listen to it and take it on its own merits, good or bad. So whether it sounds like Led Zeppelin from 71, or whether it sounds like Nickelback, or whether it sounds like whatever, I don't care. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not.
For me personally, I think the human race peaked in the 80s, so I'm quite happy with anything that's aimed at the 80s. But I think the 80s is it's become one of those decades. The 60s music's always really celebrated, and I think the same goes for the 80s.
Yeah.
And people always say, it was like when rock ruled the airwaves and then grunge killed it. And it's always been put across that grunge killed it organically, and I don't think it did. Yeah. I think that was manufactured. I read an interesting comment from a guy who claimed to work in the industry at that time once on the internet. Again, it's on the internet, so it might be true, it might not, but it just rang sort of true to me. And he was like that the record labels disliked how all the big rock bands had such clout at that point because they were filling stadiums with selling shitloads of product, and it gave them too much power, and the record company wanted that power back. So they basically manufactured a scenario where all these young bands from Seattle started coming to the fore. They were the ones getting the push because they were easy to control. They didn't have the nous, they didn't have the experience to argue against it. They were signed to contracts which weren't particularly lucrative, and all the big stars were put out to pasture. And that sounds right to me because you look at how the music business treats the artists with streaming royalties and things like that. It's always been about the record company being kingpin, not the artists.
Absolutely. It's the business rules.
Yeah, so that made a lot of sense to me. So I think celebrating those eras when it was good and saying we want more of that is a good thing.
I'm not sure I agree with it to the letter. I think part of the problem is that we'd got to the stage where the records the companies had signed that many 10th rate second generation Bon Jovis. The market just got saturated, and people thought, you know what? Why do I want to listen to that when I can listen to Bon Jovi? Or why do I want to listen to that when I can listen to Def Leppard? We don't want to listen to 10 Def Leppards who are doing it badly. We want to listen to the original one who are doing it well. And it's like anything. If you were to attach the label fashion to it, fashion, one of the interviews that we've got this next issue, actually, a guy put finger on it. He said, we don't want to be considered fashionable because by very definition, if you're fashionable today, tomorrow you're going to be unfashionable. And I think that applies. I think that things come and go, that you'll get people like us that will never tire of hearing that sort of stuff. But you've then got the fringe people, the hangers on, that, yeah, I like that song. Okay, I've heard it 10 times. I want to hear something different. And I think that's what it was. Rock was never sold to a real audience, for want of a better description, because only 10% of those who bought rock albums back then were probably real rock fans. The rest of them were just hangers on.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I remember back in the day then going to Europe concerts, Def Leppard concerts, Bon Jovi, and 3/4 of the audience were pretty girls with next to no clothes on. Great as a rock goer at that sort of time, but it wasn't real. And I think that it had had its day. It had been milked enough to sell to an audience that wasn't really that receptive, that they wanted to then move on to whatever you were going to sell me next, because I'm not that receptive to that either. That's my take.
It's a good point. I mean, this was the thing. I was hoping to get a bit of a debate going with this. Like I say, I read it on a forum, and I think it's stretched to about 16 pages of people. I mean, to be fair, most of the answers were bullshit, no way, bollocks. And, you know, the informative arguments that you get that come with those kind of statements.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting one because we do kind of have a bit of a reputation, don't we, that we sort of look backwards and not forwards. But as you rightly point out, Dave, if you listen to a lot of the stuff that we do, you do see forward-thinking bands. It's just that they do sometimes seem to get almost pushed aside for the ode, I like my 70s style Rainbow, I'm only listening to that kind of attitude. And yeah, so that's it.
It's just marketing, Pete.
Oh, yeah.
If you put something on there that, we've got this great new band that come along, they've got echoes of Bon Jovi. So then all the Bon Jovi fans are going, hang on a minute, let's have a listen to that, see if they have. You put that they sound like, I don't know, Uncle Tom Cobley and all, and nobody's ever heard of. It's not going to, there's no marketing in it. There's nothing. So you've got to find a reference point for people to latch onto it. And that's what they are. They're reference points.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, PR sales, we all know it does. I mean, especially working in the genre, the field that we do. I mean, obviously, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying that I agree with these or disagree with these. I mean, obviously, the whole point of my role is to get you two experts to start debating, and hopefully, you two come up looking really clever as you always do, and I just look the idiot because I just go, well, what about this? But so yeah. Again, people, please let us know your opinions on this. Rock and metal should embrace change instead of clinging to the past. That was the quote. So tell us what you think. Do we look forward, or do we still continue to look back? And is it causing problems for rock and metal music? We're going to move on to this, and I love this section because these two hate it. That's right. It's the lyrics game. Oh, I can see them cringing already. So the first one should be an easy one that our two experts should get. So don't forget, Dave's expert field is metal and James's expert field is rock. The second one should be more difficult, but I've got a sneaking suspicion I may have made it a bit too easy this time for the pair of them. So I think they're going to get the full whack. So James, you're up first. So here we go. Your first lyric. We never cry, we never retreat. We have no conception of love or defeat.
That is Machines Back to Humans by Queen.
It is from the album
the works.
Indeed. Released in 1984. I knew you'd get that
By
one.
Brian May and Roger Taylor.
Indeed. And you know what? It's really hard to say that one as a spoken thing rather than singing it, because it's just one of those tunes that just earworms into your brain and that's it.
Hugely underrated Queen track, that one, I
Very
think.
much so, yeah. It was never released as a single, was it?
No, but they did actually do it with Adam Lambert on one of the more recent tours. It was nice because they never played it really with Freddie. I think they had like a bit of an intro tape with it, but to do the full song, Adam Lambert did a good job of it, to be fair.
There you go. There you go. Right then, James, well, again, I don't think it is going to be a hard one. I think you're going to get it straight away.
Hope so.
There'll be hell to pay someday, so put it all on the bill.
That was brief.
It's not been the first time that's ever been said to me.
No, I'm blank on that one.
Oh, I've got him. Original Sin, Meatloaf.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have got that in a million years.
To the Neighbourhood. Released in 1995. So, bonus question, James. How did Meatloaf get his name? His nickname. So, how did Meatloaf get the nickname Meatloaf?
I'm assuming because he was a big fat bloke.
A bit more than just that, please.
I'm assuming he was a big fat bloke who likes eating meatloaf.
Yeah.
All he could afford in his college days. Something like that.
You're right about the college days. So he got the nickname Meatloaf in high school because of his size. His football coach often referred to him as Meat, and it just got elongated to Meatloaf, and that it stuck, and that's what the name he took when he started singing.
So basically, it's because he was a big fat bloke then.
I was trying to be a bit more discreet than that, but yeah.
You can't hear me. It's not a problem.
What's his real name?
Marvin Adair.
So he was born as Marvin Lee Adair, but he later changed his name to something else.
Did he actually legally change his name to Meatloaf?
No, I don't think.
No?
Didn't he switch him around? Lee Marvin, I did.
No, he called himself Michael.
Did he? No, I never heard that.
According to
Monty Russo called him a lot of names, but none of them were those.
Not his biggest fan, I must admit. Bat Out of Hell was a timeless classic, but he never got close afterwards, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Right, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Your first one. With time, the child draws in. This whipping boy done wrong.
Oh, God, it sounds so familiar. My memory's getting shocking. Nah, you're going to have to fill that one in for me, Pete. Sorry.
Oh, mate. Unforgiven by Metallica.
It is. Yeah, I was just trying to sing it in my head. Yeah.
So it came from, obviously, the album Metallica, the Black Album, in 1991.
Yeah.
Right then. Your harder one. I keep your picture upon the wall. It hides a nasty stain that's lying there.
No, that one escapes me. I can't think what that comes from at all.
I think James might know it.
I'm not going to play out my subconscious fast enough, but as soon as you said it, I was like, I know what this is, but I can't. No, it's gone.
No. It was I'm Not in Love by 10cc.
That's it.
From the album, the original soundtrack in 1974. Right then, Dave, your bonus question. Where in the UK did 10cc originate?
I've got no clue. No idea. Never paid that much attention, if I'm honest.
I'll give you a hint. It's somewhere that you and me know well.
Leeds?
Not that well. Our editor comes from there.
Oh, well, Bruce was originally born in London. Brought up in Scotland, now lives in Stockport, so take your pick.
Stockport, you're right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I forgot for a minute that 10cc were actually an English band until I reread the thing. There you go. Your memory's not the only one that's shocking, Dave.
Pyrotechnics is proudly sponsored by Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine. 164 pages packed full of interviews, reviews, and features all about your favourite genres of music. Our latest edition is available from our website, fireworks-magazine.com, or visit your local WH Smiths or McCall's. UK subscriptions are now just £32 for 4 issues. Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine. For enthusiasts, by enthusiasts.
Right. So we've come basically near to the end of the show now. So we're going to do the quiz question the answer to the quiz question that I sent the chaps way back, I think nearly almost an hour and a half ago. So the question was, which of the following artists is the UK's best-selling artist in terms of albums pure sales? Records included in this are studio albums, compilations, live albums, and box sets. So music videos, EPs, and singles have been kicked out. And again, the figures that we've got for the answer come from Chartmasters. So the 5 choices the chaps had were Pink Floyd, Eagles, Dire Straits, Guns N' Roses, and Bryan Adams. James, as you're losing 2-1 at the moment, I'm going to give you the chance to go first.
All right. Well, the key word there for me was UK. So that for me is going to eliminate the Eagles, because the Eagles are absolutely massive in the States. But yes, they're a draw here, but I don't think that they're going to be like a best-selling. So I'm going to eliminate them, and I'm not going to include Guns N' Roses either, because I think it's going to be between Pink Floyd and Dire Straits. Because Pink Floyd obviously had Dark Side of the Moon, which is one of the biggest selling albums ever. And Dire Straits, I remember doing really, really well for a period. Did that outsell Pink Floyd? I would say no, so I'm going to go with Floyd.
Okay, so James has gone Pink Floyd. Dave?
I'm following similar sorts of lines to James. I mean, certainly Guns N' Roses, I don't think. You're right, Dark Side of the Moon was one of the biggest selling albums of all time. They were a UK band. And then I thought, well, yes, what you said about the Eagles is also true, but Best of the Eagles sold squillions everywhere. Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms was the first million-selling CD, if I remember correctly. It's a tough one. I picked between the Eagles, Floyd, and Dire Straits. I'm going to stick my neck out and go Eagles.
Dave, you're going with Eagles.
Although I really think that James was probably right with Pink Floyd.
At this point, he tells us it was Bryan Adams.
The answer is Bryan Adams. No, it's not. Although I don't think he did have that bloody song that was in the charts for God knows how long for Robin Hood, didn't he?
Yeah, but you said that singles didn't count.
Yeah. I know there's residencies in the Albert Hall and stuff like that, but I don't think he's sold enough to be bigger than Pink Floyd or Dire Straits.
And Guns N' Roses did Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 that were massive sellers as well. Right, I'll give you the answer. So Bryan Adams, 7,655,000. Guns N' Roses, 7,915,000. Dire Straits, 14,150,000. Dave, your choice was the Eagles, 9,860,000. And James, your choice was Pink Floyd. Congratulations, you've just made it 2-2.
Get in there.
Yeah, so well done, James. Yeah, ties it up there. So bonus, if you can name the top 3 leading artists in terms of album pure sales in the UK.
Artists, not just rock artists.
Well, rock artists. It's our genre.
There's no Elvis or Beatles or anything.
Don't forget, Elvis and the Beatles were actually classified as rock and roll, so they do count.
I would definitely have the Beatles.
Yeah.
I'd definitely have Queen. Who would the third one I'd pick? Floyd can't be far off if they're selling that many in England.
Right. So you're going with Beatles, Queen, and Floyd. Dave, give me your top 3.
I'd certainly go Beatles as top. I would then probably go something like Stones.
Yeah.
And it's hard to argue against Pink Floyd with Dark Side being such a huge seller.
Okay, well, James, you got 2 of them. Dave, you got 1 of them.
Okay.
So you both got the Beatles. Number 1, 36,750,000. Second, Queen. So well done, James. 27,603,000. And Dave, you mentioned the third one. You didn't pick him, but you mentioned him.
Yeah,
Elvis.
I wouldn't in any way equate that kind of rock and roll to our genre, I must admit. So that's why I discounted Elvis.
Had to get that in there. Hazard to guess how many you think he sold.
Well, Elvis.
Certainly
equivalent to Beatles, if not more. 30 million.
No, actually less than Queen. 26 million. Finally.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, but well done, chaps. That was impressive. I wondered if you get the three, actually, the top three, and you nearly did. But yes,
let's keep the Meatloaf theme. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Well, hey, and on the terrible pun thing, did you hear that thing about Dire Straits and Chris Rea forming a band? Going to call himself Diarrhea. Oh,
I'll run down to the shop and buy that.
Yeah. Pete's been getting his jokes from Christmas crackers again.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, actually, to be fair, that's actually quite close to the mark. So, right then, let's bring this to a close quickly before the puns get even worse and we lose what audience we do have. So, thank you everyone for listening. I want to quickly mention Tower of Fire, that's going to be at Night Train on Bradford, Friday the 27th of June. It's 5 bands. It's we did Tower of Fire last year. Down in Manchester, well received. So we're doing it again this time, but over at Bradford. There is a meet and greet the day before the actual gig with Ted Poley. Tickets are $9.99, but there's only a limit of 150. So if you want to, jump on our website, fireworks-magazine.com, head over to the events section, look at the Tower of Fire, and it gives you links on how to get the tickets for these. But June the 28th is the main gig day, and that has First Light, Rab Stallion, Iconic Eye, Collateral, Midnight City and Ted Poley all playing. And Ted will be playing his last electric set in the UK, I believe, for that. So tickets are $39.99. And again, look at the website. We'll give you lots of information and obviously how you can get the tickets. And don't forget, apart from doing this, these two chaps are actually working really hard on issue 110. And that'll be coming out in March. We're going to start the pre-sales very soon. So all I can say is just keep checking our website. Apart from the news and the interviews and all the other stuff that we do, we will be dropping links in for the pre-sales very soon. So it just leaves me now to say goodbye. Like I said, I've been your host, Peter Arnett. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'm going to let the two chaps say goodbye as well. So Dave, as ever, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks again, Pete. Thanks everybody for listening, and hopefully we'll see you all or hear you all next time.
And James as well. Thank you very much for your company over the last hour and a half.
My pleasure. Thank you everyone for joining us. I thank you all individually, but you both know you are.
Yeah. Yeah, one's me and the other one's Pete.
Yeah. Sadly, again, very close to the mark. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. Please do look at what we do and buy the magazine when it comes out. You will enjoy it. It's a great mix of retro and new. We do try and make sure that everything's covered. Until next time, please keep yourselves safe. Keep listening to the rock and metal music you enjoy. Join in with our chats on the Facebook and all over social media. And until next time, see you all then.
If you're enjoying what you're listening to, please do us a favour and subscribe, like or follow, depending on which platform you're listening to this on, this channel, because it really does help us to grow as a brand. And obviously, the better we get at this, the more followers, the more likes, the more subscribers we get, we can try and get better guests on, which obviously makes for a better programme for you guys. So again, please follow, like, subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thank you.